everybody. Thanks for joining us for Politically Incorrect Knitters today. I am Deplorable Knitter. I'm joined by the lovely Anne Pinkava. Hi, Anne.
Hello.
And
I surprised my dog.
We also have a special guest today. We have Keya from Cedar Hill Farms joining us, which is super exciting.
Where I looked at your single sheep yarn that you had, that it was made in America.
Yeah, it's made on my farm.
Yeah, which is really awesome. I was really excited when I saw that. But, you know, yeah.
I fed my yarn source this morning.
Right. No, but, to have these very, again, I guess sustainable would be the word that most people would use, to have these good, sustainable, made in America yarn sources that you do have.
That is something that is absolutely underrepresented.
Right.
In the fiber world, is the number of places from which you can get yarn that is raised in America. Now, when I first started my raising of sheep, which is probably the furthest down the rabbit hole you can go for a knitting addiction, right?
Right.
There wasn't anywhere in the Southeast where I could really get it milled. And that was only, a few years ago. Everybody in the Southeast raised alpaca, and there was the alpaca craze. And I have friends who, raised the well-bred alpaca that sold for $25,000 a piece or $50,000 a piece. And wow. they got rich off of that. So there were mills that catered to that, but those mills didn't have the expertise to mill wool. And so in the search for a mill that their focus is wool, I was clued into the amount of wool production that there really is in this country. Now, the wool that is produced is not that really fine micron superwash merino that is actually a particular breed of sheep native to Australia. Mm-hmm. It is a hardier wool. It's a medium weight wool for the most part. Things like Polworth, Rambouillet. What I have is Corriedale. There's a lot of Corriedale in the United States. Some Teeswater west of the Mississippi. I have one. Cormo Finn. I love a Finn, but they also like to eat all the most poisonous plants on my property, so I have a hard time keeping a Finn. But well, we have this plant in the South. It's called a pokeberry, and the birds can eat it, and the sheep can eat it to a point, but it's a hallucinogen. So essentially, they get high, and then they just OD on it. So I don't have any Finn anymore. But my Corriedales are more likely to wait for the grain to show up than they are to eat the more toxic plants. But in the United States, there are huge wool mills. There's one in Michigan. There's one in Maine. There's maybe it's New Hampshire. Anyway, that New England area. There's a huge mill in Wyoming, Mountain Meadow Mill in Buffalo, that actually these mills sell directly to the public. The yarn and fiber produced by farmers on a much larger scale than me. Right now I have 12 sheep, and that is a 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week job. But these people, they have flocks, hundreds, thousands of sheep, and that yarn is available. But it isn't going to be that super slippery merino that has been the craze for so long. So in order for American yarn, American raised yarn to become a thing, really more people have to start trying it out, using it, getting over the price point. It is expensive because there's not a lot of demand for it. But if there's more demand, of course, then the price is going to drop. And then, it's just as cheap as the merino. And so there was at one point there wasn't a lot of interest in Peruvian wool. Now you see yarn companies producing all kinds of variations of highland Peruvian wool, and really all that means is it was some sort of sheep that was raised in the Peruvian highlands, and all the breeds have been mixed together before it is carded. And so you never know what the breed is going to be. At least with American yarn, the mills, the dyers that sell it, is very breed specific, so you know what you're getting. But the problem is that we have not been exposed to it as consumers in the same way that we've been exposed to merino.
Right.
And in Europe, they have the same problem. You know, people who raise sheep, a lot of them don't even shear them. They just let them graze and use them for meat because there's not any money to be made in
Right.
selling your clothes.
Yeah, that is it's a big problem where I am in South Dakota, that there are a couple of small mills around, but there's several sheep farmers I know around that, they shear the sheep, but they shear them basically for the health of the animal. Like they're not going to get anything for the wool, and which is, as someone
really
who doesn't
not.
like,
the expense to have wool milled is pretty high. I mean,
Right.
Definitely every year that I have sticker shock, even though I kind of have an expectation of, wow, you have to, it's not like you can, that's the thing. And that's the thing that consumers, I think, don't understand, is that when you are getting yarn that has been grown here in America, that those individuals who have raised the sheep, people like me, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I've probably had my hands on the birthing of the sheep. I have raised the sheep. I do all the shearing. I do all the feeding.
So yeah,
I can't have them mill one fleece at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I have to have them mill fleece by the pound. And so, that line is 100 pounds. And so, a minimum order is 100 pounds. And you only get about 50% of that after it's been washed and carded. You lose about 50% of that weight. So you are mathematically, I think it works out to about a third of what you are paying for actually goes in the trash. So it's not what consumers are paying for, what the individual having that wool milled is paying for. So if I send 120 pounds and it costs me $2,200 to have that turned into a couple hundred skeins of yarn, well, of that $2,200, a significant portion went in the trash because I was paying them to clean it, and then I was paying them to card it, and that's where you lose it. So if there isn't a huge market for it, the only way to cover that cost is to pass it along. But also, if the wool mills have more business, then their prices go down. If the dyers sell more of that yarn, then their prices go down. So I'm hoping that the one good thing that will come out of the coronavirus situation is that people will stop buying from companies that are closely associated with Chinese manufacturers and start buying things that are made in America, because wouldn't that be wonderful if everybody crocheted with American wool?
Right. And one of the things when the coronavirus started is, that I was, hoping, but didn't seem to have happened. Everyone's stuck at home. If you pick up knitting or crochet or something, making your own clothes, what else are we going to do but learn to knit if we don't already? That, and I've joked before that, if you have enough time to play a phone game, you have enough time to make your own socks. That people
That's
are like,
true.
I couldn't knit, I couldn't do this. I'm like, well, you could start though. You could, maybe it's not your thing, but you could try to pick it up. The whole making your own clothes. It used to be, that knitting wasn't like a knitting community special thing. Knitting was a thing because Johnny needs a new sweater. There was it wasn't just for the art of the thing, but it was actually cheaper to knit your own sweater than it was to buy one.
Mm-hmm.
With
and in the United States, through into the 1950s, knitting was a class that you took in elementary school. In public school, knitting was a class, co-ed. Everybody learned to knit because of, it was an industry, but it was also like you said, it was a way to provide yourself with clothing when you couldn't afford it because of economic conditions. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame that it is no longer in the school system. I do volunteer with my local library to teach knitting in the summer to kids, and I try to be open to anybody who emails me, sends me a message. Can you help me with this problem? Can you explain how to do this? I teach classes periodically at yarn shops or fiber festivals for that purpose. I I've been doing this knitting thing 39 years now, so I know a few things. But the problem is connecting people together, and I hope that, like you've said, Anne, that the coronavirus will have a consequence that, well, now we can see each other on video. Everybody video chats now. Well, except maybe me, because that's just not my thing. But for the most part, I mean, I think people are as an older adult population, I think we are now all more comfortable with communicating with each other by video, and so hopefully that will allow people to help each other to learn how to do these crafts. I'm sure that YouTube has had a significant increase in the number of people who have wanted to watch knitting videos or crochet videos. I am a basic crocheter, but YouTube is probably where I'm going to go if I want to learn how to make something or do a new crochet stitch or whatever. Knitting too, and hopefully that's a resource that people are going to start to use. Right. But I think that we need to do a better job, maybe in social media, communicating to people that this is really not that difficult. Right. Like I don't know if you saw my Instagram post yesterday, that painting bricks shawl that I did by Stephen West, which was a behemoth of a project, by the way. And it was not because it was difficult. There isn't a single stitch in that pattern that a novice knitter couldn't do. Not a single one. Super easy. But I probably picked the wrong time of the year to start it. So mine is 100% wool, and it's 1,000% humidity here every day, even in the air conditioning. So if you look at it, it looks like so many people have said, wow, that's beautiful, that's amazing, what a huge achievement. No, it's basic knitting. You just have to keep at it. It's like really knitting a shawl, unless it's really fine, like Orenburg lace, is about as difficult as knitting a dishcloth. But because it looks more complicated, people don't want to approach that. And in the absence of being able to go to Knitting Guild meetings, mm-hmm. I think it's time that we start communicating through social media that, hey, this isn't difficult. If you've always thought, hey, maybe I could do this, all it takes is a little practice. I have taught classes where people, they come to 1 or 2 classes in the series and then they're like, I can't do this. Well, why not? Because it's hard. No, it's not hard. It's just that you have to do it more than once or twice. You have to practice it. People forget how long it took them to learn how to write the alphabet. It's just, once you practice it, it's not a big deal. Now, you may not be able to do it without looking at your hands while you're watching television or walking down the street, but, it's something that is attainable. And, if there is a way that the community could just say, let's focus on getting more people involved in this, instead of let's focus on isolating people from one another based on my opinion is better than your opinion. That would be a great thing to come out of the COVID.
Yeah, that's, exactly it. If they're, the hypothetical person who is like, you know what, I would like to learn to knit. That's what I want to do with my time. And then you roll into the knitting community and it's all infighting about this and that political thing. And like, oh, I thought knitting would be a fun escape. Yeah.
Well, I know that there are several, I guess you call them online forums, where people have built a platform so that crafters can chat with one another. There is Fiberosity, there is Open Ravel, there is Fiberkind. Those are the 3 that I know of off the top of my head. Right. I'm sure that there are more.
Open Ravel actually is shutting down, which is
it is?
sad. It is. I got an email today or yesterday.
That's a shame.
Yeah, it is. I'm more on Fiberkind than I am Open Ravel or Fiberosity. It's the other one. But there you go.
And there's also Freedom Knits too. That pops up after everything.
I did just this moment get an email telling me that the yarn show that I was supposed to do in 2 weeks has just been canceled.
Oh,
and
sorry.
No.
The reason for that is essentially, I'm just going to say it right now, 2 vendors who were pretty liberal really lost their minds about how inappropriate it was to have a gathering, even though those restrictions are no longer in place in the state of Georgia, and the COVID infection rate is 0.006% in the state of Georgia. For the Georgia population, it is 0.06% infection rate. And I am more likely to get COVID from going to Walmart, which is, has been the beacon of COVID shopping, than I am to get it at a yarn festival where they limit the number of people in the building at a time, and we're all using face masks and hand sanitizer. So
yeah,
that really sucks. That makes me angry, because we were talking about, bullying. That's exactly what happened here. It wasn't that there was no reason, there was no reason that we couldn't do this. There was no health reason. There was no social distancing reason. All of the state required regulations were in place for this. It was simply two people didn't want to participate and they wanted their money back.
So they canceled the whole festival over
So
that?
they canceled the whole festival.
That doesn't make
These
any
two
sense.
people made such a big deal about how we were jeopardizing their lives.
and they couldn't just
Then
leave.
don't go.
Exactly, just don't go. Well,
Don't
now
go.
there's a
That's the
festival.
problem. Now they ruin. It's like the kid at school who won't follow the rules, so they ruin whatever you're going to do for the whole
Right,
class.
we
It
all
doesn't
can't
make
use
sense.
glue because the kid in the back corner is eating it.
Right. It doesn't. It's so frustrating, and so I got nothing. It makes me so mad.
So in one of the small towns around me, they do a little festival thing every year, and they have an older population, and they sent out cards, to all of the local residents of this little tiny town to, are we going to go through with this festival or not? Again, it's just a citywide thing, and I was hearing about person reading these cards, and it said, okay, so there was, yes, we should go through with it, with a lot of restrictions, or no, we shouldn't do it at all. And the people who ticked no were, I don't think they got the majority ticking no entirely, but they had to write on the cards like how terrible this is and how awful and everything. And from what I hear, they're the same people who are walking around without masks and chatting with their friends in the 1 hour where the grocery store is open for everyone else. That this is a great social hour, but you gotta wear your mask and don't even look people in the eyes as you go by.
Well, the
It's
hypocrisy
bizarre.
of the whole thing, it is just destroying the social fabric of the whole country. It's not, if you look at other countries that have done an excellent job with getting rid of the COVID, inflation of the percentage of COVID. Well, they have an organized system. So, like on Tuesdays, people who are in a high risk group, that's their shopping day. Those people are the only people who go to the store, and then everybody else follows along with that. They're going to abide by that. Here in this country, we do whatever we want, which is great.
Right.
Well, that and of course the protest movements that aren't really protest movements. They're really, political ideologies attempting a coup on our government. Besides that, there's, the mask thing is a problem. And I'm just going to say that you can buy sanitizer probably anywhere. You can make your own, but most of it doesn't do a darn thing to protect you from germs. If it doesn't have a certain percentage of alcohol, you're out of luck. I had to specially order and wait 3 weeks for the hand sanitizer that I needed for the show that is now canceled, because the general public can't really buy hand sanitizer that is as effective as the claim on the label. It's more effective to actually wash your hands in liquor than it is to use most hand sanitizers.
Wow.
What a waste of liquor, though.
Well, who wants to waste a good bottle of vodka on washing your hands?
Mm-hmm.
I live in a petri dish. The last thing I am concerned about is getting what really for me amounts to a flu virus. That that's really low down on the list of things that I could get sick from.
Right.
Having a farm, I am around so much excrement in the course of one day from a variety of animals that carry a variety of parasites. And, I am more concerned about will I find a snake in the chicken coop than I am will I get the COVID virus.
Your immune system must be rocking.
We probably all have had it. We kind of believe in herd immunity because I think a lot of farmers believe in herd immunity because it's how Mother Nature works. It's how things work on the farm. If you have a sick animal, you isolate it, or everybody gets it, and they either die or they survive. And it's not going to be any different with this virus or the flu virus. Hey, there's a new strain of flu virus coming out in the fall. Yep. Right? How will we know the difference as the public between the flu and COVID?
Well, it's probably going to be an issue until November, and then probably all of this stuff is going to work itself out.
Oh, if the current administration continues for another 4 years, COVID is going to be the worst situation ever in the history of the world because we're going to have to latch right onto that, whether people are sick or not. Because we're going to need a crusade. So, well, I won't, but a lot of people will need a crusade.
Right.
But, and if it goes the other way, we won't hear about it again.
Right. No, that's
But we'll have new problems.
Oh,
a lot more problems.
We will. I think that the biggest problem is going to be underestimation of how far people are willing to be pushed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that and I don't want to I really don't want to get back into the whole political thing, but I think you could draw the same parallel with the fiber community. We are very quickly approaching the point where people are done being pushed around.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, just in the past couple of months, I've seen a lot more yarn dyers and a lot more people who are just done with all of this. Speaking up, saying stuff, they're over this whole bullying nonsense, being told that they're racist or whatever the issue might be. But
yeah, I think people we've had a year of it. And, the Ravelry anniversary was just, wasn't it last week?
Mm-hmm.
And so we've had enough. And I think that people who withdrew are kind of saying, that's not being fair to me. So I'm going to get back into it. I do know that on my Instagram account that just in the last 3 weeks, I've had probably 1 or 2 messages a day from people saying, I'm so glad to have found you, somebody who doesn't, with integrity, who is not willing to jump on the next latest bandwagon, just wants to sell yarn, just, has pictures of the things that she does, and thanks for showing pictures of your sheep. And, people are starting to say, okay, to all of that bullying and that drama, and now they're finally moving on. I think there's going to be less and less of an audience, and so you're going to hear the social justice warriors scream louder and louder. But so many people are just standing up, and I think the fact that in standing up, what they're doing is exposing the bullies. I will not have signs posted saying, I'm a Republican, I'm Trump. I won't do those things, although I will say that I did go to shows last year where people who were anti-Trump plastered that throughout their booths and made announcements that if you support Trump, please don't shop here, and bizarre things like
insane.
That. But it is insane. Yes. As a matter of fact, I was at a show and one woman pretty much cleared the arena with her anti-Trump tirade, and all that does is make it difficult for the vendors who are around you who don't share your opinion, or maybe share your opinion but would still like to sell yarn. So
maybe it's the lack of their faith in capitalism that makes them think that they don't, I don't understand, as a business person, don't you want my money? Isn't that the goal of selling yarn, to get people to pay you for it? You know what I mean?
Well, that's the kind of the point of having a business, but I don't think that a lot of the people who are ultra liberal, at least in the yarn world, I don't think that it occurs to them that people might not want to shop somewhere where there's so much drama. I mean, I don't personally care what your political opinions are, and if I didn't make my own yarn, then I probably would buy it from people regardless of what their political views are. I've never gone to a yarn shop and said, are you liberal or conservative, before I looked at the yarn. That's not what the fiber industry is about. That's not what knitting's about. It's not what crochet is about. It's not what spinning is about. It's not what farming is about. It's about that joy of crafting. But I think that they make the assumption that they deserve to have people buy from them. And so, you know, we have an obligation to shop with them regardless of what their drama happens to be at the moment. And they don't see it as off-putting. They see it as, you know, I'm here, I'm right. You are obligated to shop for me. So
Right.
I don't think those people are very successful. You know, I think that they probably have had a difficult time staying in business. But the people that I associate with, the business owners that I associate with in the fiber world, do not, you know, draw those lines, do not have those expectations. If you don't agree with me, fabulous. You know, it doesn't make any difference in terms of how nice my yarn is, or, you know, whether it's worth buying. It's, you know, customer service is no longer important to some people, and that's unfortunate. But you know, there are a lot of us out there who just, you know, are in this industry to sell yarn, to make beautiful things, to enable you to make beautiful things. And we really just don't care, you know, beyond that part of your existence, how you live your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think, like you said, I've never walked into a yarn shop either and said, hey, what's your political standpoint? If somebody is quiet about it, I will support them. Like, I have a yarn shop nearby. I'm pretty sure they're liberal. I'm pretty sure that if they knew who I was, they would be like, maybe we don't want you. But they've never said it to me, and I've never said it to them. And I still shop there. It's the trying to push their ideology down their throat that's the part that's why I've not bought from certain people. Not because they're liberals, not because it's because they're trying to make me have to be involved in their nonsense when I just really want to buy some nice yarn. So,
and I think the majority of people in this country, well, in the world, who want to buy yarn are of that same opinion. I just want to buy yarn. I don't want to be pulled into anything because I bought yarn from you.
right.
But on the other hand, you know, I think that we business owners in the fiber community do have some responsibility to stand up against all of the bullying that has gone on. And I think of anything else in the fiber community that has been problematic over the last year, it has been that bullying, that incessant popping up to say nasty things. And then, you know, once you get the person whose account it is upset, then you disappear. And just being a constant antagonist in people's lives, I think that has made a lot of people withdraw from the knitting community, the crafting community. They feel like it's just too much to deal with, and they're just gonna, you know, they're just gonna do their own thing. I think a lot of people may have left social media for that reason. And I know that a lot of yarn dyers who don't jump on whatever is the next popular liberal bandwagon, they, you know, have had serious financial difficulty because, you know, rather than just saying, okay, I don't agree with you, I'm not going to shop with you, these bullies are doing whatever they can to destroy livelihoods, to destroy lives, to ruin reputations at no cost to themselves, but at a definite cost to whoever they go after. And I think that has probably been the thing that has most impacted the fiber community, is that people are afraid to advertise. They're afraid to be on social media because they don't want to be a target. And, you know, I if you do a search online, you'll see that there are a lot of smaller yarn dyers, hobby businesses who just say, I can't do it anymore, you know, and not just because of the COVID, but just because of the bullying. They get on a list. I've been on lists, you know, blacklists. Make sure that you don't shop with this woman. She's racist. She's a white supremacist. I was on the original list on Facebook, you know, of evil people. I am. I think we're all three of us are pretty special.
I wasn't on the list. I was a little offended. So
I was on the list too, but you came and your pattern was popular just enough after that you probably missed it.
I know.
What happened.
Should have hurried up so I could be on that list.
I know, right?
But, you know, I mean, I had the yarn shop on Ravelry. I had the pattern shop on Ravelry, and everybody says it was so hard to leave Ravelry. The only thing difficult for me about leaving Ravelry was the amount of time it took me to download all of my patterns from my library before I clicked delete. That was the only thing. And
Yeah.
because everybody thinks that's it, that's all there is, Ravelry is the only way to advertise. It's the only way to, you know, put your business out there. But Ravelry has not been around for an eternity. It's only been around since what, 2009? So maybe 2007. So people were advertising on all kinds of platforms in addition to Ravelry. You know, the idea that if I leave Ravelry, all those opportunities go away is ridiculous. So, you know, leaving Ravelry worked out really well for me. And would I ever go back? No. I have participated in other platforms that, because I am capable of managing my own patterns and doing things like finding the website of the pattern designers that I like to get my patterns, I have no need for the automation of Ravelry.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm just as likely to keep my patterns, you know, on printed pieces of paper as I am to have them on a computer or in a database. So, you know, with Ravelry, without Ravelry, makes no difference. I can still communicate with people in other online forums.
Right. And you know, to touch on what you were saying before with just the bullying of Ravelry. So where I live, there's only a couple of yarn shows. They're very few and far between. And I was talking with a woman, and the sort of leader of her local yarn guild is incredibly liberal and incredibly loud about it. And this woman was so clearly cowed by her. Like, I can't, you know, again, she doesn't want to join the group. She doesn't want to be in the group anymore. She stopped knitting. She doesn't want to go to these yarn festivals because that sort of like fear of being attacked for your beliefs is just getting to her. I'm like, no, you know, like it's preventing people from creating. And I think that's a terrible thing.
Absolutely.
That's a common theme that a lot of people have said to me, is that after all this nonsense, I just don't even want to do it anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that too. And that is upsetting, because from the point of view of someone who creates to help other people create,
right,
taking away someone's ability to create or desire to create is disabling to a person. And I don't say that because, you know, I want people to spend all their money in my yarn shop. I say that because everybody needs an outlet.
Right.
And if your outlet has always been a craft and suddenly that's gone from your life, well, you've lost something that balances all the other stresses in life. And that ultimately affects mental health. So
it does.
You know, my husband and I were talking last night, and I said, you know, that I hate sitting at a desk all day long, which is what I've had to do, you know, for the job that I'm doing right now.
Right.
I can't sit still. I have to be doing something. So I am always knitting while I am working, because my hands have to be doing something. On a normal day when I'm not working on the computer, I am outside with all the animals, working, you know, fixing things on the farm, installing new things. We always have projects going. So right. If I didn't have, if my only outlet was a craft that I did when I got home from work every day, and suddenly that was gone,
right,
vegetating in front of the television doesn't replace that. So that is another really unfortunate consequence, I think, not of Ravelry being gone, but of the torrent of social media bullying that has been gone on. And I know a lot of people who have left their guilds because they just don't feel welcome there anymore. And personally, I wish the politics would just take a step back from the crafting world and just let people do what they like to do. I don't understand why it has to invade every aspect of our lives, because up until a couple of years ago, it didn't. People just did their thing, and they watched the news, and they agreed with what was going on, or they didn't agree with what was going on, and they went about their lives. But I don't know. Times are changing, and they're not changing in a good direction.
Right. I mean, I'm an instigator of some of the politics in knitting, but part of the reason I started it is was because there was so much stuff that was Democrat and liberal, and so I just started doing it to bring a voice to the other side. And then people were just so mad that that it wasn't just their echo chamber of liberal ideas anymore, and that was discouraging too, because I never tried to shove anything down anybody's throat. I was just trying to say, oh, well, you're going to have, blue wave hats. We're going to have walkaway hats. Like, just trying to balance it a little bit. And then everybody got all up in arms. I don't know.
Shame on you for creating an antithesis to the pussycat hat.
I don't know if any of mine could be compared to the pussycat hat. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh, I don't know.
I tried.
There are a few that you've done that would just make the wearers of pussycat hats cry. So,
well, there is that. But it just, you don't want politics in it, but you also don't want, if there is going to be politics, this whole one-sided thing is really part of what's so frustrating. Because
that's true.
Back in the day, we used to be able to talk to people. Oh, well, I like, whoever, and you don't, and we could still talk about it. But there's this whole culture of shouting someone down until you get them to agree with you. Most of the time, like, the conservatives are all quiet now because we just don't want to have an argument. Okay, I'll agree with you.
I'm waiting for you to put out an anti-Marxism hat.
Okay. We'll see about that. I'll have to think about that.
Well, because, that's what this is. That's what, when it gets right down to it, if you asked one of these screamers, one of these bullies on social media, to justify their claims with evidence, they can't.
Right.
And they, what they're doing is basically, regurgitating Karl Marx strategies. Just keep saying the same thing over and over until everybody believes it. And, if somebody questions what you are telling them, just scream louder. It's not, there's not a lot of logic to it. There's not a lot of historical evidence that says, yeah, this works. And to say that, one person's viewpoint makes them evil, but your equally awful viewpoint makes you saintly is ridiculous. And that's what's going on. And so I think it is important that there are people like the three of us who say, okay, next.
Right. Right.
I have never had anybody, well, they really don't even come after me anymore, because on social media, I had for a while last year, it was pretty nuts with people constantly, coming after me with commentary that if you read it minus the emotion of the moment, you just went, what? Right. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And a lot of, assumptions about who I am and what I believe simply because I didn't vote for Hillary is, that's their game. But I don't get a lot of that anymore because they've never been able to have the last word. They've never been able to intimidate me. I just don't. That's the thing about me. I don't intimidate. And, I wish more people were like that. My life experience has steeled me against all of those criticisms. I am who I am, and I'm happy with that. So if you're not, I'm sorry for you. But, right. It isn't going to change who I am. And I think, unfortunately, because a lot of people seek refuge in the crafting that they do, when that is attacked, they feel personally attacked, and it makes them withdraw. But I think that there's also the type of person like the three of us who, when they get attacked, they defend themselves, and then they say, okay, you've had your time on the soapbox, goodbye. So, right. And then, it doesn't change the way that I live my life or the things that I do. I am still going to dye yarn, and it might end up with a snarky colorway name that reminds me of that person, who last tried to bully me on social media, but that's how it goes. But I don't go after them. I don't seek them out. If you've lost your mind, well, I'm sorry for you, but it doesn't make me lose mine. If you want to get rid of a bully, you kind of have to be a bully. And when they see that they can't victimize you, they back down and go away. I think that's basic bully psychology, is they're only going to bully the people that they can victimize. And if they can't victimize you, well, then they don't have time for you. So, and I think that we're going to start seeing that more and more and more, that people are just going to say, look, here is a snapshot of what somebody said to me. And I think everybody should see what a terrible person, is associated with this account. And I think whether they want to or not, whether it's intentional or it's just an algorithm, it does seem like Instagram is more and more closing the accounts of these people who are, because they are being identified, more and more people are reporting them. And so I think that signals that we are at a tipping point in the fiber community, at least, probably also in this country, where you're going to start seeing people saying, no, I'm not going to put up with that. I don't have time for that. That's not, I'm not going to say that I support you when I really don't, just to, you know, just to be left alone. Because because so many people have said, you know, you can hang out with me on social media. I will, you know, I'm not going to judge you. And we need to get back to that, just like we need more people to knit and crochet and spin and make things and weave and, you know, sew and whatever your craft is. We need more people to do that. And we need more people to say, you know, we're just going to, if we're going to associate with each other, it's going to be for that purpose. And then, you know, go on with our lives separately, like we did before.
Right.
I think things, so we have a tendency to just kind of go back to old habits. And I think people will.
I think you're right too. And on that note, do you have any yarn you'd like to show us, or anything?
Well, I had to cover up the window, so you can't really see it. But this afternoon I do have a unfortunately large amount of yarn coming from my supplier that was supposed to be dyed for the yarn festival that is no longer happening. So you can expect that there was going to be a lot of yarn in a shop update, because now I got to pay for it.
Right.
So, you know, that's the thing. That's also the thing that people don't understand about yarn dyers, is that we don't get the yarn on credit, and it's not on consignment from a supplier. So, you know, we have to pay for that up front, and boy, is that not cheap. So, you know, I've seen dyers who show, like, in the background they're dyeing things, and they show this wall of undyed yarn just waiting with possibility. And all I can think of is, I think they must have mortgaged their house to have that much undyed yarn in reserve, because it is very expensive. And so there are a lot of dyers who, with this shutting down all the yarn shows, their inventory has gone down to next to nothing. And so here's one thing that I can say, that I think is true for all dyers, regardless of your political opinion, that in this time, it is important, if you want us to be there for a yarn show next year, it is important for you to shop with us. And if you don't see something that you want, if you don't see a colorway that you want, then hit that message button on the person's website and tell them, I'm looking for this. Can you dye this for me? I do custom orders all the time. And it's all that means is you contacted me and said, I would like yarn with these colors in it. Or you sent me a picture and said, can you match this? I have, you know, I want to make a sweater to, you know, to go with this outfit. I've dyed, you know, colorways that fit people's business logos, you know, to match a pair of shoes. You know, I mean, I can do, I imagine most dyers can do custom orders. And so if you don't see what you want, it's not because that person necessarily is going out of business. It's because we can't afford right now to have a huge inventory. And so, you know, if there's something that you want, you need to ask. If you have a favorite dyer, ask that dyer to, you know, to work with you to get what you want, because we just can't, we just don't have the funds. And the one industry that is not being supported by the federal government through COVID, with all of these deposits into bank accounts, is the fiber industry. Fiber dyers are not, I've been going around and around with the government about whether or not I deserve a stimulus check, because I am because of the type of company that I have. You know, the way I file my taxes, I am an LLC and not a sole proprietorship. So you can be a sole proprietorship and have 500 employees and get $10 million from the federal government. But if you are what most of us are, because we have to carry insurance for doing shows, most of us are small hobby classified businesses for tax purposes. And so, hey, we don't qualify. And so we just don't have the cash in reserve. It takes a lot of money to do things like, so, you know, support a website and advertise and buy yarn in advance, hoping that once you dye it, people are going to not be able to get enough of it. That's, you know, I mean, it's a risk. Being a dyer is a financial risk. And I own a sheep farm, and there is nothing about owning a sheep farm that is profitable. It is a money pit. But I do it because I like the yarn that I produce. I prefer to knit with the yarn that I produce. And so, you know, fortunately, my husband loves me and pays the bills for most of the farm shoes. But, you know, I still be able to pay for the yarn. So yes, there will be a yarn in the next 2 weeks that will show up on my website, which is cedarhillyarns.com. And
we will link
if there's something that you, thank you. If there's something that, you know, that y'all are looking for that you don't see, I can only produce so much in these times, but hopefully all of my fiber shows, and I think I speak for everybody who has a yarn business, all of my fiber shows have been now canceled up to October.
Wow.
So I greatly appreciate the support that I have gotten from the fiber community in terms of people buying yarn. And when I say that a fiber show has been canceled, you know, a lot of people contact me, and they you know, I have people who will buy a stitch marker, which, you know, is not a lot of investment, not a lot of money for a purchase, but it certainly does help. I mean, everything that you can do to help support these businesses. And I know that there are many yarn hoarders out there who have set aside a budget for the year for fiber festivals, and now is the time to use it, because a lot of dyers, and I have to be honest and say I might be one of them, are likely not going to make it to October.
Wow.
I might not make it to, you know, to the SAF, which is the big yarn show in the Southeast in October in North Carolina. It's, you know, I have to be able to pay the bills every month, and I can only do that if people shop online. Now, there are these virtual fiber shows, which is an interesting concept. But for those of us who have a website, all we're doing is paying extra money to somebody else to promote the fact that we have a website, because all they're going to do is give us time to say, hey, go to my website and here's some yarn that I have, which you can also see on my website.
Right.
So it's not likely that I am going to participate in virtual fiber shows, because I can't control where my money goes. And I know at least one show intended to take that money that I was paying for an hour of exposure to, you know, use it to put money in Ravelry's pocket. So can't do that. Absolutely not. I'm more likely to shoot myself in the foot than I am to do anything that ever supports Ravelry again.
I know.
Because personally, I think that Ravelry started this whole mess that the fiber community finds themselves in, financial, social, and otherwise. And so, yeah, no. So if people want to invite me to participate in their virtual fiber show, and you're not going to do anything that supports Ravelry, please contact me. Otherwise, you know, I have a website, and I am happy to do whatever I can to make people have an enjoyable crafting experience, to enable them to continue being yarn hoarders and fiber hoarders, and you know, hide things in the cupboard so their husband doesn't see that they bought more. I'm happy to do that. But, you know, I have a website, and the thing about my website is you can contact me 24 hours a day. Some people have tried that out. And you know, you can contact me on social media. I sell the yarn that we raise, which is 100% wool. It is Teeswater, Cornrow, Corriedale, and Finn Cross. I think I may be the only fiber farmer in the United States. I really haven't seen that anywhere else, actually, that produces yarn of that fiber content. And it is the perfect yarn for sweaters, by the way.
Also, there's a lady on Instagram. Her name's Natalia, and she's a Russian lady, and she fairly popular. She has the most beautiful Fair Isle yoke sweaters, and there's one famous one that she does where it's actually little stormtrooper helmets across the yoke.
Oh, cool.
So, you know, if you're into Star Wars, but she does these sweaters, and I've looked at her knitting before, and it is exactly what you have. It is incredibly thin, single ply yarn, and I always looked at her yarn before. I'm like, oh, I've never seen yarn like that before. So again, when I saw your stuff, I'm like, wait, it's exactly what the one Russian lady has.
Right. Well,
that is
single
perfect
ply
sweater, like you said.
All yarn is single ply yarn when it is milled. And until it is plied together with another strand, you know, that's the original form that yarn comes in, single ply, when it comes you know, off of the machines at the mill. And so traditionally, yarn has not been 3-ply, 4-ply, 10-ply. It's either because people originally it was hand spun, and then when it was mill spun, it was spun, just like thread. And so, I think I'd have to double check, but I am fairly sure that the knitting industry, because we used to have knitting guilds where women weren't even allowed to participate. It was a man only thing, believe it or not. But yeah, not until the 1900s really did women get to participate in knitting as a craft.
Right.
You did it at home, but you couldn't make a living at it. And then with the advent of World War I and World War II, women started selling, producing things for sale, particularly in Europe. And so it became a woman's hobby, which is dumb because anybody can knit. But the yarn has always been a single ply. So if you do color work, there isn't anything better than a single ply wool yarn because it sticks together. When you only are working with one ply, you are more likely when you wash it for that yarn to, I don't want to say felt, but it binds itself. The strands bind themselves together. That's how you get the warmth and the solidity to the fabric is that single ply yarn. So the more plies you have, the less interwoven, I guess is a good way to explain it. Your yarn is, because it attaches itself to the other ply, not so much to the yarn that's next to it. So yes, the single ply is what I have, and I am actually about to do it to wind it into smaller skeins, so it can be, you can buy it in smaller quantities to be able to do color work projects. Sometimes you get so enamored with, well, I do with my own yarn that I forget that people might want to use it in smaller quantities. So that's something that I'm going to do. Hopefully I will get that done this weekend so that next week it will be available in smaller colorway quantities. And then also I've had a few people ask me if I could put together kits for the painting brick shawl. And so, yes, I can. And having that, having my yarn, which is the single sheet yarn in the smaller quantities, pretty much means that you can pick any color combination that you want to from the yarns that I dye. And of course, if there is a color that I don't have that you really want to have in a project, you just have to say, this is what I want. Here's a picture of it, and I can do it for you. So
awesome.
There will be new sock yarn, new sport weight yarn.
Awesome.
There is the more of the raised in Britain, British BFL sock yarn that will be available next week.
Nice.
Right now, because there's not the demand for it, I can't get base yarn for two of my yarn bases, which is the velvet, which is alpaca and merino and nylon, and then the superwash merino that I have, the Journey. I just can't get yarn to dye for those. But and as a matter of fact, my supplier is sending me the last of his sock yarn, 70% sock yarn, because guess where everybody gets their sock yarn, I think, is from my supplier. So everybody has been, it's trying to have some new things to bring in new business. I am no exception, but now I'm going to have a lot of it. So y'all please keep checking back, but I will on Instagram and Facebook put up an update when new yarn has been posted.
Awesome.
That is awesome. I look forward to it, especially the smaller quantities, because I do a ton of color work. So that's something that appeals to me a lot. I mean, I would buy all the yarn if I could, but I would too. I am a yarn addict, and people think that yarn dyers don't buy yarn because they dye yarn, but that is a falsehood. We definitely buy it from each other. If you want to see something amusing, is stick around after hours at a yarn show, because the dyers are all shopping from one another. They've been looking at each other's stuff all day, and they are buying it up. So there is nothing wrong with having a large quantity of yarn on hand. There's really not. At the beginning of the year, just like every single year, the podcasters, not you guys, but the podcasters, particularly European podcasters, I don't know what is up with them, but they go on this, I'm just going to knit from stash. If you want to buy yarn, that's fine. Guilt trip. But I'm going to knit from stash, and you should knit from stash because it's socially irresponsible to keep spending money.
That's like the diet and exercise goal, New Year's goal that everybody is on in January and February. But unfortunately, thanks to COVID, that mentality seems to be pervasive. People are holding on to their money. And there is one thing that all yarn dyers will tell you that most people don't notice, is that in an election year, our sales are awful.
Really?
Because everybody we're a luxury industry, we're a niche industry, and everybody is holding on to their money for things like food, because they start to worry about whether or not they're going to be employed next week. So, people become really concerned about that. And, one thing that we rely on to buy luxury items is credit cards. And I don't know about you, but none of my credit card companies said, hey, because everybody has the COVID thing and so many people are unemployed, we're going to reduce interest rates on your credit cards. No. So, people are concerned about the spending of the money, and I totally understand that. It is a bit of a conundrum for me as a business owner to say, I totally understand that you can't buy yarn now, but please buy yarn.
Right.
But like I said, just buying something small, even if it's just a stitch marker, a pair of knitting needles, whatever, that supports those dyers, those companies that you want to be able to shop from next year. So even if it's just a small thing, you're not.
It's luxury for me. It's bread for you.
Yeah. It does. It what helps me as a business helps you as a consumer. That's how, that's how it's traditionally been. If you want to see more of what you like, then you have to invest in making that possible. So
Cool.
Thank you to everybody who has supported me as a yarn dyer. I've been doing this since 2010. So I guess that makes this my 10-year anniversary. What a unfortunate year to have an anniversary in. But I am optimistic that things are going to get better. Once we get past all of the upheaval that has happened, people just didn't know what to do with the pandemic. It's been 100 years since we had a pandemic that crippled the United States. So people didn't know what to do.
Right.
And I think that we are going to find our feet again and get right back to business as usual. Just have to find a slightly different way to make that happen.
I think you're right. And I just really appreciate you taking your time from your job and your farm and all of your stuff to come and talk to us today.
You are welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. Happy 4th of July.
Oh yes, all of the fireworks and festivities are canceled, but happy 4th of July.
Yep, we can still celebrate. It's all right.
Well, I have a feeling, like I said, I live in a rural community, and I do have neighbors, around my farm, and they have been practicing their fireworks for 2 weeks now. So I have a feeling that we won't miss out on fireworks, but
Yep.
We will miss out on things like the big barbecues that people traditionally have in the South for things like the 4th of July. So that's unfortunate, but I hope you ladies have an excellent 4th of July. Have plenty of time to knit and be creative and spend with your families.
Yeah,
well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, you are welcome. I was excited to be on your, and I wish you the best with the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the best for your business.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope that joining us will help you get some more sales, especially since that thing was just canceled. That's such a bummer.
I know. It's Murphy's Law. Murphy and I are not friends.
Yeah, I understand that.
All right. Well, y'all have a great day. Thank you so very much.
You too. Thank you.
Definitely.
All right.
Thank you again.
Bye.
Bye.